The Colorado Buffaloes are heading to Orlando. They're big underdogs, but can they pull it off?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joining me today, Andrew Cherico of both. We have this guy does it all. He does a little bit for Sidelines Sports Network, and he also does it for Sons of UCF. Andrew, thank you for joining us. How are you?
No problem. Doing great, man. Doing great. Looking forward to a very cinematic weekend as we're all expecting Big Noon Fox in town and just a high profile matchup. Can't wait.
There's going to be a lot of fans, a lot of recruits. I'm seeing anywhere from 100 to 300 recruits in attendance at the game. So it will be certainly a spectacle. Obviously, I think it's one of those things where obviously there's a lot of interest in UCF, right? Like they just got a crystal ball for Duckworth, the 4-star quarterback. But I also think that there's a lot of Florida kids who may be interested in Boulder a little bit, who wanted to catch a Colorado game. And then there's some kids who probably just want to watch the game in general, who don't have interest in either school, because I think that's just how recruiting works these days. But we are going to talk about how these teams match up. I dove into it on yesterday's show, and I went through 12 categories. Sorry, word souping it over here. Went through 12 categories, and it was Colorado was better in 6. UCF was better in 6. So where do you see, or how do you see these two teams matching up?
Okay, so for me, it comes down to the passing game versus the rushing game. As RJ Harvey, Deion Sanders, Gus Malzahn said, UCF is going to run the ball. We are, I believe, first or second in rushing yards per game in the nation, around 375 rushing yards. RJ Harvey is an absolute monster, so you know he's going to get the ball. And not only behind RJ Harvey, you have Penny Boone, Miles Montgomery, and Johnny Richardson, arguably one of the deepest running back rooms in the country. On the passing side, though, our passing game has been a lot more sketch. I would say the first 2 games against New Hampshire and Sam Houston State, our passing game was very, very questionable. KJ Jefferson just didn't seem comfortable in the pocket. He was sailing a lot of balls, but when it came to crunch time in TCU, he kind of like sat up in his seat a little bit. He locked in. He crunched off crunch time, man. He made some excellent throws, getting hit a ton, and you know about quarterbacks getting hit with Shedeur, getting the beatings he's been getting. So KJ got destroyed sometimes, even as big as he is, and still completed some throws. But on the other side of the defense, I fully expect Colorado to air it out on UCF defense. Our pass rush hasn't been good whatsoever. We have 1 sack through 3 games, and we just haven't created much pressure on the quarterback. And you don't want to give Shedeur Sanders times, as well as the D-backs. With having enough time, D-backs are eventually going to get exposed.
Yeah, and I think this will be an interesting game in the trenches because it's statistically one of the worst offensive lines versus one of the worst pass rushing defensive lines. So it's like, are they just going to be just like a stalemate up front where no one goes anywhere? Like, is that what it's going to be? If it is, I think that would probably help Colorado a little bit more, right? Because at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders, believe it or not, last week in the win against Baylor, sacked 8 times, which is a career high for him. He had been sacked 7 times, a handful of other times. So he's coming off a game where he was thrown to the ground a lot. Obviously, that Baylor defense is – I know Dave Aranda's on the hot seat, but Dave Aranda is one of the better defensive minds in college football, and he was scheming some things up, right? That offensive line was not ready for – I think someone I talked to said Baylor runs a stunt every single play, and you just have to figure out where it is. And Colorado was obviously not figuring out where it was, so that makes it a little difficult. Also, the matchups of receivers versus secondary is one that intrigues me for the sake of Colorado, just because – that's where TCU appeared to have their most success, right? Josh Hoover threw for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he had things cooking. So explain to me what the difference was in that TCU game. Like, why did UCF win that game specifically, and what can Colorado do to make sure they don't pull a TCU, if you will?
I would say resilience in a veteran group. I would say if that was the same team last year against TCU, UCF would have folded, not came out in the second half fighting. But you also have to remember that there was, I believe, 2 blocked field goals in the first half. So if you put those on the board, it was only a 2-possession game to begin with, even maybe 1. And so the offense never felt like they were out of the game. But it was more just like, keep doing what we're going to do. They didn't switch up the game plan. We passed it a little bit more because time was running out, of course. But running the ball, RJ still dominated on the ground. And defense-wise, we finally started putting some pressure on the quarterback. Not much, but Jack Besh for TCU had over 200 receiving yards. So they dominated us through the air. So it's no question about that. But we also played some bend, don't break defense, which UCF tends to do a lot. We let you get up to like around the 20-yard line, 15-yard line. You're like, all right, now it's enough. Now you can stop. We let you dominate the whole field. But once we lock in. But yeah, I would say it was just more a key to resilience. If you remember last year, UCF had the incredibly blown lead against Baylor. And that was heart dropping for so many fans. A lot of fans felt like the season was over at that point. So for UCF to come out and win that, it just shows to the response. Gus Malzahn always talks about response, and it was just following the game plan and executing. That's the best way I can say. That's why we won.
Okay. It's interesting because I look at these two teams. Obviously, UCF, bread and butter is running the ball, right? Colorado's run defense, I'm not going to pretend like it's the best ever, but it has improved dramatically from last year. Last year, they were like the worst run defense team in the country, and now they're at somewhere in the 80s, which a 40-team jump, not bad, right? And so they have two linebackers who are currently graded among the top or at the top, according to PFF, in run defense, which is a really big step up since last year because I think it was Levante Bentley, who is one of the Colorado linebackers. If I remember correctly, his run defense grade on PFF jumped 40 points from last year to this year. So, like, there's clearly a big difference in how Colorado is attacking the run. But this will obviously be the best test they have this season because outside of, I would say, Nebraska, maybe, I don't think they face a running attack Nebraska's not even as good as UCF. I think that's just the most comparable rushing attack they face. So, we're really going to see how improved they are, and we're going to see how willing, I guess, KJ Jefferson is to use his legs, because I think you could agree with this. I don't think he's had a game yet where it's like a KJ Jefferson game where he's rushing for 100 yards, he's breaking tackles all the time, right? Would you agree that we haven't seen as much from him?
Yeah, I agree. He hasn't had his signature UCF game yet. Obviously, in the TCU game, he made some big throws, made some big plays, but it was more just like an offensive carried win, but not a KJ Jefferson carried win. A lot of it came from RJ Harvey and Kobe Hudson, our two best playmakers. And a quick testament to the last statement you made, for UCF's rushing, the problem for Colorado isn't going to be stopping it early, but UCF is going to keep grounding the ball if they're up by 10, if they're down by 10, or if it's tie game. And it's just a continued run, plus the eye candy that Gus Malzahn loves to throw in, some motions, some sweeps, and it just breaks down the defense over time. So rushing is the priority for UCF. KJ Jefferson, we might get a signature game, but many people view it as if KJ Jefferson could just be a solid game manager, UCF will win a lot of games this year. But there's obviously going to need to be a game where he carries, and hasn't been that yet.
Yeah, I think this game might be the game, to be honest, because Colorado hasn't been beaten a lot by running backs. But what has hurt them is a good old quarterback draw. You know, Sawyer Robinson, he's not a burner by any means, the Baylor quarterback. He burnt Colorado for a 45-yard touchdown. The North Dakota State quarterback was using his legs quite a bit. So I think this could be the game where we see KJ Jefferson sort of explode. And I like that you talked about they just wear him down. And I think that was one of my keys yesterday when I did my keys to victory for Colorado, was getting UCF off the field on third down, because they're converting at a 57% rate, which means it's almost a 60-40% chance that they're going to convert, which is not great for the defense. And then also they're pretty good at controlling the time of possession. So if they're a team who wants to run the ball, they are a team that's going to be on the field forever. And so if you're Colorado who wants to just air that thing out, it's going to be tough if Colorado goes 3 and out in 3 plays and UCF then goes down the field in 20 plays or whatever it is on just 5-yard carries at a time. Wouldn't you agree there?
Yeah, that's how UCF came back against TCU. We were just dominating the time of possession in the second half. TCU would come, get a 3 and out. We dominate for another 10 minutes, and then just repetition of that. Broke down the defense. All we needed was one stop going into crunch time. Its last possession, missed field goal, and that's how UCF won. So I absolutely agree that for UCF to win and be dominant in a football game, they need to dominate time of possession. It comes with the running game, and that's all of the above.
And let's talk about your one receiver who Hudson, correct?
Colby Hudson.
Colby Hudson. So I saw a stat that he is the best receiver against man coverage in college football. And Colorado only plays man defense, which will be a very, very interesting test. I imagine Travis Hunter will be following him, or I hope for Colorado's sake, Travis Hunter will be following him. How much of a factor do you think that will be? Just that Hunter versus Hudson matchup.
Many people call RJ Harvey one of the more underappreciated running backs in college football. I think Kobe Hudson is one of the more underappreciated wide receivers in college football. He is a dog when it comes to getting the ball and making a play with it. He's not only good at catching it, but he's great with it in his hands. He's a great yak player. He gets the ball, makes a move, and scores. He's done that plenty of times on a quick hitch route, go 70 yards. But not only that, he's just very fast off the release. So it's hard for receivers. And then he tracks the ball so well in the air. That's the reason why he's number one in single coverage. Not because he's created a bunch of separation, but because he's made a bunch of contested catches. In the TCU game, he made that one catch in the end zone on the slant route. He got absolutely destroyed, but still held onto the ball. Arguably, last year when UCF had Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, we had 2 wide receiver ones. And now it's just showing Kobe Hudson's talent more.
Yeah, I think that'll be, like I said earlier at the Open, this is a weird game because it's these teams are so opposite, but at the same time, they have so many matchups where it's yeah, we got to watch that. It's RJ Harvey versus the Colorado's front seven. It's Colby Hudson, versus Travis Hunter. It's KJ Jefferson versus everyone, right? We need to see how Colorado could slow down KJ Jefferson. So it will be an interesting matchup for sure. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the keys to victory for both teams. But first, a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up a financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement bonus on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges for a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is where Robinhood is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood Gold.com. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Joining me is Andrew Cherico. UCF is obviously one of the more underrated teams in college football. I think if they're not ranked 26th right now, they are around 27, 28 in the country, right? They should be a top 25 team. I just think, in a way, I think people forget about them because they've only played 3 games, with 2 of those being against Group 5 teams that they really had an easy time with, and one of them being New Hampshire, who they beat the brakes off of, right? And you're supposed to. UCF has done everything they needed to do. Started off a little ugly against TCU, so I think if they win this week, they'll probably scoot into the top 25, but winning this week is going to be a big test. So give me 3 keys to victory, and we'll go one at a time so that way we could dissect. So give me your first key to victory for UCF here.
I would say the first one is to limit the turnovers. Obviously, that's an obvious one, but when it's more specific for UCF, because when you're such a ground dominant team, you need time of possession to wear down the defense. And if you're sailing interceptions or we're fumbling, and it's just ruining the entire game plan. So no fumbles, no interceptions, and UCF should have a clean day.
Yeah, I think Colorado on the flip side needs to force a few turnovers or a turnover or 2 just to get the ball back in the offense's hand, right? We're talking about how dominant UCF is in time of possession, and Colorado, that's not their game. Colorado is one of the teams where they're either going to score on you really quickly or they're going to give the ball up really quickly in terms of hey, we went 3 and out in 3 plays. That's just how it goes for Colorado. So they need to figure out a way to Travis Hunter, Shiloh Sanders, if he returns to the game, which Coach Prime kind of hinted at it, but didn't say he would. Shiloh Sanders is a hard hitter at safety. Travis Hunter forced a clutch fumble to end the game against Baylor. If they can force a fumble or even pick off one of KJ Jefferson's passes, right, that changes the whole dynamic of the game, because now UCF hasn't, they were behind, but they weren't playing an offense, I would say, in TCU that is as electric as this Colorado offense can be, right? So if Colorado goes up 2 touchdowns all of a sudden, it could force UCF to kind of change their game plan. And I think that's where Colorado would really benefit the most is okay, RJ Harvey has just become a non-factor in the run game. That would be a huge win for Colorado. Now, obviously, I don't know if they do that. But that's sort of the mindset, right? You want to change up what UCF wants to do. Otherwise, if they're getting comfortable, Gus Malzahn, he's going to do his thing. That's what he likes to do, right? So what's your next key to victory?
To bounce off of what you said, if RJ Harvey becomes a non-factor, Colorado has won this game by at least 21 points. RJ Harvey needs to be a factor in every win for UCF going into conference play. There's no question. He wants to be a Heisman candidate. He's shown it so far, 8 rushing touchdowns on the season, 500 yards. And to go along with it, KJ Jefferson. If those two, RJ Harvey and KJ Jefferson, can get the read option going, the run pass option going, KJ Jefferson is a bowling ball in traffic. He can run somebody over. He's not easy to go down. Against TCU, he bounced off many hits. He's been bouncing off many hits his entire career. He said in an interview, "My mama told me don't get tackled by one person." So as long as he continues to live by that and he gets RJ going as well, it'll be a hard scheme, because it's in reality, UCF is going to run the ball, but it's all the motions, it's all the jet sweeps, all the little read options, the keys that allow them to be so dominant on the run game.
The possibilities are endless there, right? Like they're never just going to run it up the middle without like someone moving across the field or whatever. Like they like to confuse you. A lot of people call it window dressing, where there's like a lot of things happening for a play that at the end of the day, it's probably a simple play. They're probably just going to run it at a certain gap, but before the play, you're going to have a wide receiver run across. You're going to have the running back motion. You're going to have a lot of things happen. And so to hit on your KJ Jefferson point, he's listed at 6'3", 247 on ESPN. And I got to say, I feel like he's more of a 6'3", 255, 260 type of guy. He's ginormous. He's ginormous. So I think to kind of go off of I'm going to counter key you every time, right? So your key is to get them going in the read option. Colorado's key is to tackle them, right? Like, it's as simple as it sounds, as dumb as that sounds. You can't allow them to get into that second level. You can't allow them, KJ Jefferson or RJ Harvey, to break tackles and sort of demoralize your defense, right? Because if you can't bring them down, eventually that's what I think, and you kind of talked about this earlier against TCU. TCU was a little rattled because it was like, okay, we were just up 21, and now we can't tackle these guys at all. And so that could kind of take the wind out of your sails and take the confidence out of your defense. Hit me with your next key.
All right, and I have get to Shedeur Sanders. Gus Malzahn has said it many times. He's a great quarterback without pressure, under pressure, but naturally, if you create pressure on the quarterback, it may force a bad decision. It's just the way the game is. And if UCF can get to him, I believe UCF has 1 sack through 3 games, and Colorado has allowed 16 through 4. So if UCF needs to show that they can get to the quarterback, I feel like there's not a better team to show that they can do that than against Colorado. And if they can get some big third down sacks, some big players just tackling Shedeur, get him off his rhythm, I think UCF should be in for a good day.
Yeah, and then the counter to that is Colorado's offensive line needs a pick-me-up, right? And this would be the perfect defense to do it against, right? The team that ranks, I think they're tied for or dead last in the country with sacks because they just have 1, right? And I mean, Colorado's not that far ahead; they only have 5. But for Colorado, this whole offense, the whole offseason, I'll tell you a quick little story about this new offensive line. They started this hashtag or the saying, where it was "Don't touch 2." It was hashtag DT2. Which was basically like, don't let people touch Shedeur Sanders, don't let him get sacked. And against North Dakota State, which, I mean, it's one of those things where you want to respect North Dakota State because they are the best FCS program in existence. Yeah. They only gave 1 sack, right? And so I was like, cool, very solid performance. And then they go to Nebraska the following week. And I believe, let me confirm, sacked 6 times. Yeah, he got sacked 6 times. And then Colorado State, even though Colorado beat them, Colorado State got to him 1 time. And so I was like, okay, so clearly against inferior competition, this line can hold up. But let's see it against someone who's at the same level or above the same level. Like, you can't just not show up anytime there's a good team. And so this will be, while UCF hasn't really shown that they're a pass rushing savant team, right? This will be a good test for Colorado because they haven't shown that they could protect against a Power 4 team. And so protect Shedeur, live up to that hashtag. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at these numbers sacks wise, and Shedeur is pretty much on par to be sacked as much times as he was last year, which was over 50 times. So I said for this team to really be successful, the offensive line needed to be average. And right now they are below average, right? It's as simple as that. They're not performing as well as they need to. So get some momentum going. And I think the way to do that also is Colorado's kind of found a run game in the past couple weeks. lean on that run game a little bit, right? Take the pressure off Shedeur and just let the running backs eat a little bit. So that way there's no pressure on Shedeur to have to be a superhero every play. He shouldn't have to will Colorado to victory every single game, despite what people think. So those are our keys to victory. When we come back, we're going to talk about our predictions, and hopefully we get them right. Otherwise, the people will be upset, Andrew. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Okay, it is prediction time. I like to give a full-on analysis of what's happening at the game. So we're going to go weather, we're going to go odds, and we're going to go with all the factors. So right now, according to ESPN, which I don't know if this is true because I know there's a pretty severe hurricane going on in Florida, which I hope everyone over there is safe and is able to make it out okay. ESPN says we're looking at 87 degrees cloudy. I don't know if that's accurate, but I do think that if it starts to be a torrential downpour, that could affect Colorado's passing game because that's what they want to do. They're the 5th best passing attack in the country. ESPN's matchup predictor gives UCF an 82% chance of winning. And then the odds makers over at ESPN currently have, at the time this was recorded, UCF is a 14-point favorite. And the over-under is set at 63.5. So they're expecting somewhat of a high-scoring game. Andrew, how do you see this game going down?
Give me a 34-23 win for UCF.
Okay.
I do think Colorado's going to get a couple bombs off. Travis Hunter's going to make big plays. Shedeur Sanders is going to make big plays. But when it comes down to it, I think UCF is going to fundamentally dominate, which is Gus Malzahn's style. And I think it just wear down Colorado's defense to where R.J. Harvey has 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. KJ Jefferson might go for 60-plus rushing yards, and it'll just be a fundamentally dominant day. I do think the first half will start pretty electric. I do think it'll be 14-plus both sides in the first half, but I think UCF is going to put away in the second half.
Yeah, I like the prediction. The first half thing I'm a little worried about for Colorado because I'll be honest, I hate how they start in the first quarter. They come out in the first quarter. Their script plays may as well just be, hey, we're going to run out there, run 3 random plays and punt because that's what it feels like every single game. They never get off to strong starts, and then they kind of pick it up in the second quarter. So that's my concern. Before I give my prediction, because obviously you think UCF's winning the game, and that's totally fine. If they lose the game, what happened? Like what do you think led to a loss for UCF if it goes that way?
Absolutely. And quickly to say the statement you made, UCF starts off terribly on defense as well. We
again
historically
don't add each other's weaknesses.
Yeah. This is the weirdest matchup ever. Like everything aligns perfectly. But last season UCF started really bad on defense and eventually pick it up towards the second half. But if Colorado does win this game, I don't think it's the end of the world for UCF. Obviously, they had the high note win against TCU, but you can say, "Oh, it's fluky. It was this and that because of the comeback." So this would be UCF's first established Big 12 home opener win. But if we lose to Colorado, they have Florida next week, and then if they don't win in Florida, then issues start to arise. UCF expects to win this game. Vegas expects UCF to win this game. Fans expect UCF to win this game. It's just a lot of eyes on Colorado. Colorado has the media, has the publicity. So people are rooting for Colorado. But when it comes down to the fundamentals, like I said, UCF. But if they lose, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world, but it's definitely not the best for the home.
What would you say the key factor is, though, if they lose? Is it just the passing attack is too much to keep up with, or what do you think happens there?
You stopped R.J. Harvey. Stopped.
Easier said than done, though.
That's exactly what it is. He said in a press conference, they know I'm going to run. You guys know I'm going to run. The team knows I'm going to run. Can they stop me, though? Can they stop me? And to go along with RJ, you have Miles Montgomery, Penny Boone, Johnny Richardson. So it's just a dominant running game. He's going to get 30-plus, 25, 30-plus carries. Other guys receive around 15 combined. KJ, he's going to scramble. So, but it's stopping RJ Harvey.
Yeah, I think Coach Prime said it best. He's going to put everyone in the box. Even his mom's going to be in the box. This is a direct quote from Deion Sanders. They run the heck out of the ball. You put everybody in the box. Even my mom is going to be in the box this week. So clearly and I think another comment he said earlier too that was funny was they're going to load the box and pray. I don't know if I'm getting that exactly right, but it was something along those lines where it ended in a prayer. I too think UCF wins. I think it's going to be a little closer. Colorado is a second half team, so I have visioned this game going UCF starts off somewhat strong, and they don't even really have to start off strong. Colorado's just a bad first half team or first quarter team. And then I think Colorado's going to come back because in the second half of games this year, Colorado's given up, I think, a combined 14 points. They've allowed one touchdown against Baylor, and then they allowed a score against Colorado State. They held Nebraska scoreless, and then, they had North Dakota State as well. So they allowed like one touchdown in each game in the second half, which is really good considering how strong those teams started against them. So I imagine this game's going to go UCF starts strong, Colorado picks up a rhythm, comes back a little bit, and then they're just not able to sort of keep up at the end or do enough to catch up at the end, So I have UCF winning 35-31. I do think Colorado is going to have a chance to score at the end because I feel like most of their games they do. I just don't know if this will be the week that they in the game with a Hail Mary catch that sends it to overtime or whatever. Like I think it's just one of those things where I think them starting slow is going to come back to bite them eventually, and it wouldn't shock me if it's this game. I think that's just kind of how you can't start slow every week and expect to win, right?
Yeah. Personally, I think if Colorado is within a one possession game, within the 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I don't like that for UCF. That's why I have 34-23. I think for UCF to win this game, it needs to be not too dominant because it's not a crazy score, but it's a statement win. It's a statement win. I don't like Colorado within a one-score game in the fourth quarter. It's UCF tends to break a lot of people's hearts during that time. But like you said, Colorado starting off slow. UCF defense starts off slow. So we really have no idea what's going to happen in this matchup. Everything we talk about, it could be UCF starts passing the heck out of the ball and Colorado starts running it.
That would be, knowing these teams and how they match up, that'd be the perfect cherry on top where Colorado's like, you know what, we're going to run the ball 50 times a day. Shador, take a back seat. And then UCF's like, KJ, you're not the best passer, but hey, let's air that thing out.
You never know how this matchup is going to go. Black and gold on black and gold, even though UCF doesn't wear black and gold a lot.
Yeah, but I'm always interested to see what uniforms they bust out. I'm very intrigued.
Oh, drip you, man, drip you. I love all the uniforms. I love it. But yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. I think they match up so weirdly well that you really can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we just got to wait and see. To kind of before we go, I think if Colorado loses this game, and I'm doing this because I did it to Andrew, I have to give an explanation for why Colorado loses this game. They couldn't stop the run. It's as simple as that, right? We think their run defense we don't think. We know it's much improved compared to last year. But at the same time, they have not faced the number one rushing offense in college football. And so we're going to find out if I would say, about average rush defense can slow down the best rushing attack in the country. And we'll find out. There's a lot of things we're going to learn about both teams this week. Obviously, can KJ Jefferson, can he break out? Can Colorado get some confidence on the offensive line? Can they get pressure on KJ Jefferson? Can they stop the run? Who's going to keep up with who? Who's going to do what? But either way, it's going to be a fun one. And I'm going to have you covered here on Locked On Buffs. And Andrew is going to have you covered every place he works at. So, Andrew, tell the people where they could find you and what you're working on before this game and after the game, obviously.
Absolutely. So you can find me on X or Twitter, if people still call it
whatever you refer to it as.
On Andrew_Cherico. You can find some work at Sidelines UCF. You can find some work at Sons of UCF. I do a lot of on-cam stuff for Sons of UCF, press conferences, pre-games, post-games, bites, clips, everything you get from a reporter. I'm a credential reporter and interning, kind of, and just trying to make a name.
He's out there on the ground. Tell the people where you're going right after this, like literally right after.
Absolutely. So we're going to get some words and media availability from the Big Noon Fox crew. So that's going to be fun. We're going to have their thoughts on the UCF versus Colorado matchup and what they think are the predictions and their keys to win.
I'd be interested because I honestly think they lean very heavily Colorado sometimes. So I'd be interested to see what they have to say. Make sure to go check out Andrew's work. He's doing a great job covering everything Knights football and everything beyond. We're over here at Locked On Buffs every single day, making sure that you guys are staying up to date on Colorado football. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I will see you guys tomorrow after the game. We will go live right away where I will break down what went right, what went wrong, and everything in between. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen. Have a great Friday, and we'll see everyone tomorrow.